William Roache, or best known to his fans as Ken Barlow in Coronation Street, is the longest-serving cast member since his first appearance in 1960. Alongside being an actor, William has a long interest in spiritualism. In 2008, he wrote his book Soul on the Street, which offers an inspirational insight into William's deep spiritual understandings and the times and events that have shaped his life. William invited me to his home for an exclusive interview on his spiritual views. Well, William Roache, welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure to have you on. It really is.
Very nice to be on, Kevin.
Now, William, in your upbringing, would you say that you was very spiritual, or, I mean, in your school life, for example, was you more into the arts or more into the science-based?
Well, the problem was my family were all doctors, and I was meant to be good at the sciences, but I wasn't. I was much better at English and history and those sort of subjects, so that's why I didn't follow in the family footsteps.
But your father, was he very spiritual?
No. My father, it's funny how my grandfather, who I never met, was very into, he was in the 1920s, and there was a thing called theosophy then, which was bringing over the Eastern philosophies and translating them into Western terms. And he was a Freemason, spiritualist, all sorts of things. And my father was totally disinterested in all that. And when I started getting an interest in some of those things, he said, "Oh, you sound just like your father, your grandfather."
So you would say then that your grandfather was a very big influence on your spiritual upbringing?
He wasn't initially, no, because I found them myself. I just found that I needed to inquire about certain things. And it was my father who pointed out the similarity. But then I started to inquire into what he had done and what his interests were, and that extended my interest. So he wasn't really an influence in that sense. I had it in me. I just needed to know.
I mean, there was nothing in your past to say you was going to be an actor, because your mother was very artistic. I would say your mother was an amateur actor as such.
Oh, yes. Yeah, my mother was a very keen amateur actress, and she directed the Town's Women Guild in plays and things like that. But no, in my family, and going way back, there's no indication of that. I've really diverted the gene pool, and sad to say, I was hoping my children would say, "I want to be a doctor," but no, I'm afraid that both my sons are actors, so I've really diverted the gene pool.
So, okay, now you joined the Royal Welsh Fusiliers at one point, which then led you into the army. Where was that in your spiritual path, do you think?
Well, that wasn't a choice. National service was the order of the day, and I hadn't got into medical college, as we've explained why. They said you can go back and finish your training as a doctor afterwards. So I had to do my 2 years, and I was at a boarding school in Colwyn Bay, Rydal School. So I registered there, and obviously I was going to go into the Welsh Brigade. So I was enlisted into the Royal Welsh Fusiliers, very nice regiment, white hackle, black flash down the back, looks good for the girls. And I decided if I got commissioned that that would fulfill the family honour. And then I could do whatever I wanted. So I did get commissioned. I did 6 years, a couple of years in what we now call the Gulf. I got to the rank of captain, and at the age of 26 came out and got on with what I wanted to do.
Was life hard in the army?
I would never have chosen it. And I was lucky, though, because when I enlisted, the Korean War was on, and the Welsh Brigade were in Korea, and I was fully expecting to go there. But I was sent to the West Indies, Jamaica. I didn't realise the 2nd Battalion was out there, so I just played cricket and drank rum and had a good time. But then I went to Germany. Then I volunteered for the Crucial Omen Scouts, which was an Arabian, British officers with Arab troops. In what is now the Crucial Omen, it was called Crucial Omen Scouts, but it's now the United Arab Emirates. So I was there before they got together and helping them form it.
Absolutely. And of course, the rest is history, with your Coronation Street career.
Well, having got out of the army at the age of 26, having been a captain and all that family background, no connecting with the theatre, the driving force in me was to be an actor. So I really had to tread my own path and fight my way in, which I did.
So that was your passion, that was your true love.
I just had something I just knew I had to do. And also I found quite quickly that the only way to learn is in the theatre. So I was also fortunate that in those days, in the 1950s, every major town had a repertory theatre.
Yes.
So you could get a job, paid something like £5 a week, and you could be learning the craft in front of an audience, which is the only way to learn it. You know, if you're getting a laugh or if you're holding their attention. So I did 2.5 years of theatre and learnt the craft that way.
Okay. So where would you say your spiritual beliefs grew from then? I mean, where did you then next explore this whole spiritual side that you've got?
When I look back, I realized I was always curious about certain things, sort of mystical things, but it was actually the fear of death. I was terrified of it. And my father being a doctor, I remember he had to go out and treat people with polio. This was before the vaccines were in. And I was actually terrified. Death was something, so I was so frightened I would break out in a sweat at the thought of it. I couldn't talk about it. And then I began to think about life and I felt there was something missing. Something wasn't right. And it was as I began to explore, and I was always arguing with the school chaplain, right, in a nice way, but not arguing, but asking questions. I wanted to know. And I thought God or Jesus or someone would give me the answer, but they didn't.
But that's what I was going to ask you. Why do you not go to the church? So you did in
I
the
did
end.
go to the church. And I kept asking questions, and they'd say, oh, no, you mustn't ask that, or God works in mysterious ways, you shouldn't ask those sort of questions. But the truth will stand up to any sort of questioning. And really, I wanted to know what I didn't realize. I wanted to know about life after death, what there was more to life. And they weren't giving me any of that. So they didn't give me any of the answers. I had to look elsewhere.
But there was a small commission set up, wasn't there, at one time within the church to look at reincarnation? And
absolutely.
But it was suppressed, was it? I mean,
yes.
Tell us about that.
I think it was in the 30s. There was a group of about 7 or 8 bishops set up an inquiry as to whether they should be teaching reincarnation. The result of the inquiry said they should. But the Archbishop of the day suppressed it, and that's still on record.
So what was it like initially when you went through this sort of spiritual transformation? I mean, was there many books there to sort of get the information from?
I didn't go through a spiritual transformation so much as realize that from day one I'd been looking. I didn't quite realize I was doing it. I wasn't doing it consciously until I began to get an interest in things and spiritualism and things like that, and astrology, all those sort of things. They sort of fascinated me. So it was a slow process of learning. The quantum leap, as it were, happened in the late 60s, early 70s, when I had success. Coronation Street had been running for 10 years. I had some money. Things were looking good. I had what everyone else would say is all you need in life. But it wasn't so. I didn't feel complete. In fact, I felt probably more unhappy than I'd felt before. And I knew there was something missing. And that's when I came across someone in London who said, I know someone who's just wonderful, who might be able to help you. He's a homeopathic doctor, but she said, I think he's more than that. And I went to see this chap in Dulwich, a man called Dr. Morn. And it turned out he was a homeopath. He was an amazing man. I mean, extraordinary looking man. Very small with a long grey beard and these incredible deep brown eyes. And he was talking to me about things. I told him I felt depleted in every way, mentally, physically, emotionally and spiritually. So eventually he said, I have meetings here once a fortnight down in the waiting room. Why don't you come along? So I went to one of them, and it was like coming home. He just talked for a while, and then they did a meditation, and then people gave reports, some amazing reports,
yes,
where they'd been during the meditation, which to me was absolutely extraordinary. And then the most amazing thing that happened, the first realization that he was something different. I was due to see him, I'd been to this meeting, I was due to see him homeopathically about something, but I was also thinking about this meeting. And I had a dream. And it was one of those vivid, really, really vivid dreams. He was there. Dr. Morn was there in his very untidy study that he had. And in the dream, he just sort of leant forward and looked at me and said, "Why don't you come and join us, Bill?" And that was it. I woke up in the morning with this really, really vivid dream. So that was the day I went along and I had the meeting with him, and I went into his little study. And as I walked in, he looked at me and he said, "Did you get my message?" That was a spine-tingling moment. I mean, absolutely extraordinary. That guy was able to appear on the astral plane as soon as discovered, and come into a dream and actually speak to me in that way.
So this was, the proof, some of the proof that you were looking for, the first few steps.
Well, you don't call it spiritual at this stage. You're just inquiring, and you hear about strange phenomena. There is much more to life than we can recognize by the five senses. And I'd heard about astral travel and this sort of thing. But this man had done something quite extraordinary. And also, as he spoke to me, I felt he could see right through and into me, and he knew everything about me. So I attended those classes for some time, and he was a master, and I learned a tremendous amount from him.
And would you say this was more of use the word truth for you rather than a belief?
Oh, yeah, you've got to be careful with the word belief. People are throwing bombs around on a belief. If you meet someone who's really charismatic and you believe everything they say is true, that isn't right. You can't do that. Belief is a stepping stone. It's something that may be right, but it may not. You should only act on a belief when you've actually turned it into a truth. So it's a search for the truth that is the key. And your beliefs are helpful in that respect, so long as you don't blindly follow a belief.
So there's not many spiritual soap stars, is there, really? I mean, at the time when you were starting to, look into this, did you feel quite alone at some point?
Oh, I felt totally alone. And of course, it was during that period when nowadays spiritual things are accepted much more. And this is going to happen more and more. This is what's happening. Everybody's waking up as we're moving, and the Earth's going into its own ascension. So there is a big awakening taking place. But when I started, these things are very unusual. And you had to be careful who you talk to. People would get hostile because it upset their five sensory perception of things. So yes, it was something very unusual.
Okay, Bill, we're going to take a short break there, so stay tuned and we'll be right back. What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves, physically, emotionally, and spiritually?
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago, we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique.
Help other people to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores Cannon has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT. Now you can learn her method by going directly to themoreshow.com/QHHT. And don't forget to mention the discount coupon MORETALKS. Welcome back. I'm currently still joined with William Roach. Now, William, one of the issues we were talking about in the previous section was your fear of death. Now, obviously, once you started looking into the spiritual ideas, did your fear of death diminish?
Oh, yeah. The idea that was the end, bang, the materialistic view is this is it, this is all there is. And at the end of it, oblivion. It was really, it just felt wrong. I couldn't accept that. So as I began to grow in understanding that we're spiritual beings in a physical vehicle, and this is the temporary state, our true home is the spiritual realm. That is where we belong. That is a very beautiful place. And that is where we get on with things. It isn't sitting on a cloud with a harp and that sort of thing. You actually get on. Once you've been here to work out what it is you need to work out, you then carry on growing. It's an infinite process of growing in love and light in the spiritual realm. And it's a very beautiful place. So as I began to understand that, then I realized that what is death is, like someone said, it's like walking out of a smoke-filled room into the fresh air. It's like walking through a swing door. It is just a change of environment. That's all it is.
And do you find yourself meditating a lot as well? Just sort of
meditation is the thing about meditation is you've got the emotions, you've got your mind, and you've got your body. Your body's demanding this, that, and the other. Your emotions are all upset about that's going on, and your mind is racing away. In meditation, you calm all these down. You have to be sitting in a place where you're not going to be intruded. I meditate in here. You're sitting in my meditating chair. And that's all you need, a place where you're not going to be interrupted. You balance your breathing, you leave all your concerns outside the room, and you just, for 20 minutes, whatever, give yourself some peace. Nothing's going to happen. That 20 minutes is yours. And you'll be amazed at the beautiful feeling from the heart, mainly, of relaxation, of love, and all sorts of your finer qualities sort of shine through. Pressures and tensions just disappear. And eventually, through meditations, you can begin to see things, you can travel, and have all sorts of wonderful experiences. It depends on the degree of your ability to meditate, but it's an essential part of it.
Absolutely. So you feel a lot more happier and balanced for that.
Well, you become more harmonious within yourself. First of all, you do any inner struggles going on will resolve. You also get in harmony with your spiritual self. And the whole purpose of life is that your ego, your personality, should be work in harmony with your spiritual self. Your spiritual self is your eternal you, the you that carries on and exists. And the ego that you've built up is to take you through this particular life and this particular destiny. That needs to become eventually the happy and willing servant of your higher self. When you get to that stage, then life becomes so much more happier. You realize you get back what you give out, and if you're being hateful or angry, you'll get anger back and you'll get hate back. If you're loving and kind, kindness comes back to you. So the world is what you make it, and it's wonderful once you realize that.
So, William, being on this spiritual path you've been on for nearly 50 years, would you say, almost? I mean,
well, in retrospect, my whole life I was near, the spiritual side of me was near to the surface, but it came out consciously, fully, I suppose, in my late 20s and 30s, yeah.
Did you think, when going out on this spiritual path, you were going to try to find the answers to why life is so hard sometimes as well?
Well, you begin to understand the whole thing, yeah. And you've come down here. Your spirit has chosen the family, the environment, all the problems. It's also chosen your personality with all its weaknesses. This is why you should never hate yourself. You've chosen what you are deliberately. You've deliberately chosen weaknesses and emotional traits to take you through a set of circumstances that you need in order to learn the lessons that you want to learn. We've all come to work out negative energy and to learn from our experiences. So there's no point in disliking your ego, because that is what you needed for this particular journey. And it will take you through that. And then eventually, when you can get your ego sufficiently understanding to accept it as a spiritual side, and to start then willingly working towards that, the suffering falls away. You only suffer. The example is a child puts his hand in the fire, burns its hand, don't do that again. In the more subtle ways, if you're sending out hate or aggression, you'll find hate and aggression is coming back. So we're learning all the time. And as your ego and your personality learns to be more loving, to be kinder, to be more compassionate, these are all the spiritual qualities. You're getting more in line with your spirit. You're becoming more like your spirit, and eventually you become one.
But when we bring people into our vicinity where they are quite hostile to us, whether it's against our views or just, negative people, do you blame yourself for bringing those people into your life?
No, there's no blame attached, and anything that happens, you just need to look at it. There's no blame in anything. Everything is a learning curve. And if someone comes into your environment who's very aggressive, for some reason you've drawn that to you, and you've got to look at an aspect of yourself. And the more violent and horrible somebody is, the more love they need, because inside that violent and horrible personality and ego is a beautiful spirit waiting. How am I going to get through to this? So if you send love to a violent and aggressive person, it helps them eventually to break that violence down and to listen to their inner self.
Now, you've been through some pretty hard times. You've had your fair share. And one of them, obviously, was your second daughter that passed, Edwina, in 1983. How did your spiritual beliefs help you cope with that? And could you have turned to religion to cope with that? I mean, I know you never were, but I mean, is there a balance between the two? I mean,
yes, it was a great help to have the understanding that I had. And I knew that there was a reason why Edwina came for only 18 months. And when something happens like that, it isn't just you, it's everybody around you. She came in, she would have decided to come in for 18 months and decided to go back. And the effect was a teaching process for all of us there. I know that she's fine. I know that a spirit that comes into a little baby child, the spirit isn't a baby. It just has to develop and with that body that it's entered. The spirit goes back and is a fully grown spiritual being. And I've had messages from Edwina since, knowing that she actually, her role in the spiritual realms is helping young babies who've gone over and are crying for their mummies. Because everyone believes it's just the same as here. They don't understand. They're in a different place. So she has experienced that and is helping children to do that.
Isn't that just amazing?
Oh, it's wonderful. Now, when I got those messages, it was really beautiful to know that.
Yeah. But didn't you also see her in a visionary form as well on the day of the funeral?
Well, after she died, the grief is awful when children are not supposed to die before you, and young children, you feel it's not just the upset, it is a sense of guilt. As a parent, you feel responsible somehow that this shouldn't have happened. So the suffering is really quite immense, and we couldn't eat. We just lived on hot chocolate. We couldn't talk without crying. And it was on the morning of the funeral. I really didn't know how I was going to get through it. And I woke up, and I was awake. I know I was awake, lying in bed, and I saw this, I can only describe it as a glory, a golden glow. And I saw Edwina's face in it, smiling, and with it came this great sense of peace and comfort. And that helped us get through the funeral service. My wife didn't see what I saw, but she said, I feel better. I feel a bit easier today. And then we got to the state where we could enjoy the 18 months she'd been with us, knowing that it was a planned thing and there was a reason for it, and that she is now fine. And she'd gone home, in fact. It's a bit like you've gone to school. They say, come on, you can come home early. She went home early.
Yeah, I mean, you do believe that, don't you? That you come from home and you go back to what you would call
the
home.
Spiritual realm is where we've come from and where we go and where, when we finish here, where we carry on. We're all immortal. It's an infinite process. We're all immortal. We never die. And we live in the spiritual realm. That is our home. We have decided to come to this schoolroom in order to learn some things, to learn about independence and what it feels like to be totally alone. And it's quite frightening in many ways. The suffering that we go through teaches us all sorts of things, the difference between good and evil as well. So we chose to do this, but this isn't our home. Oh, it's a much happier place where we go than where we spend our eternal life.
So she's very busy over there then, by the sound of it. Yeah.
Everybody's very busy over there. There's more things going on over there than are going on here.
But does Sarah feel the same way?
Sarah she understood that I was more interested and was finding out more along this path. She had a basic understanding, but she didn't pursue it like I did.
No, but she had the basic understanding which got you both through it.
Yes.
And, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I suppose you were teaching her things, were you not?
Well, as you find out, you share them.
Yeah,
Yes.
share them. Yeah. But you can't prove your journey to anyone. This is your journey.
There's no proof involved at all, and it is an individual journey. This is why you should never try to impose it on other people. You don't know quite the state they're at or what they need. If people come to you and ask, that is wonderful. That's happened for a reason, and you should make sure you're ready and can answer their questions for them. But it is an individual journey. It's an inward journey as well. Your spirit resides in your heart, and it's the heart more than reason. Reason will only take you so far. Reason will not take you beyond the limit of the five senses. But once you move into the spiritual realms, you're in a multi-sensory environment, and intuition becomes the main guiding force.
Did you have any sort of spiritual friends at the time of Edwina's passing that you could sort of share it with, or?
Always you come across occasionally people, and it's wonderful when you do, who can share your views and you can discuss them. But generally you don't. I never bring them up anywhere because you will meet hostility, because a lot of people are worried. They don't want to be taken beyond the safe feeling that their five senses give them. They don't want to think about things beyond it. And you shouldn't try to impose it either. So I keep very quiet and until either someone like you comes along or I meet someone. You can recognize it pretty quickly the people who know, and then you can have talks about it.
I mean, yeah, so what you're saying, it scares some people then?
Well, yes, some people are just not ready for it for one reason or another. It might scare them. I find totally the opposite. It's a great source of peace and comfort. It's far more scary to feel that you're in this physical state and that's all there is.
I mean, you must see the times are changing now. You can talk about this on national TV now, and actually, there's a lot more people thinking the same way.
The times have changed amazingly. People are much more aware, and this is going to happen. This is stepping up. The environment is speeding up. The earth itself is going through an ascension, and everybody on it is getting more aware and beginning to realize there is more. This is going to speed up. More and more people will want to know and will be inquiring about their spiritual selves. This is the process that's going on.
And do you miss home sometimes, as we might call home heaven, to personify the word?
Home, yeah, that's where we come from. That's where we belong. That is where we are at home. That is our natural home, yeah.
And do you miss it?
I know it's a much happier place than being here. I get glimmers of it in my heart and in my meditations. I can feel what it's like. And it'll be a bit of a surprise initially, just getting used to it. But I know it's a very loving and beautiful place to be.
Well, you must give a lot of strength to other couples who have gone through similar things. I've got to say that.
Yes, I think anybody who starts to inquire about the truth about themselves and begins to understand that they are first and foremost a spirit. We're all spiritual beings. We happen to be residing in a physical vehicle. This is just a vehicle, and it's temporary, and that we carry on. We meet again. Love is a great connector. If you love somebody, you'll never be separate. You'll always be together. It is an infinite process, and love is the driving force. Love solves every problem, and love is what everything is all about.
Do we love ourselves enough?
No, we don't love ourselves because we think of ourselves as our ego, and our ego can be quite horrible sometimes. There are some pretty nasty egos around. We all know there's parts of our egos that we don't like ourselves. But that is your ego. That is just the persona that you've built up in this incarnation. That will disperse. And the true you, which will have all the good qualities of that, the consciousness will still be the same. You still feel the same as you do now. In fact, it's interesting to talk about the difference between the mind and the brain. The brain is the physical vehicle through which the mind operates. Mind is of spirit. The mind is of your true self. So all that you think and know now in your mind you have, plus a heck of a lot more. The brain can only accommodate according to the vibrational level that you've got it. The more you refine and improve yourself, the more of your spiritual stuff can come through.
So are you saying we should go more with our emotions, or?
No, definitely not.
No.
The emotions, initially, you have to be careful about them. You mustn't be driven by your emotions. But as you get quieter and become more spiritually aware, then it is feelings that will guide you and intuition that will guide you more than reason.
Okay, William, we're going to take a break there and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
You're on a journey right now, a destination where you are headed full of adventure. And all around you are clues pointing you in the direction of your higher purpose and dreams. The signs and synchronicities can be seen whilst on a trip, at your local coffee shop, within your social networks. The road to your success and happiness is scattered throughout the pictures of our days. Simply make the connection, that's all. Channeling.com is your source for highly regarded spiritual readers who can direct you on your journey. Use the code TMS1 to receive a discount on your first reading.
Welcome back to the show. I'm currently still joined here with William Roach. Now, William, thanks for joining us for this final section. So, William, we were talking about love there just before the break. So to you, love solves everything.
Love is the driving force. Love is the life force. Love is everything, and love solves everything. I'm talking about the pure, sacrificial, and pure love. The love that we have, it's still the same force underneath, but the love that we tend to recognize has got the bolt-ons of possessiveness and jealousy and desire and all those things. Pure love just wants to help and love and care for people and wants absolutely nothing in return. That is the spiritual love.
And would you say worry is something we should that should bog us down? Basically, is worry a thing we should be concerned about?
It might well be a cause leading you to an interesting end. I mean, if you have something that worries you, if you're just worried, a worried person, no, you've got to get meditating and get that sorted. But if something worries you, have a good look at it and have a look at yourself. And there's a reason. Life should be totally happy, and we should be living in a state of permanent bliss. That is the spiritual state. But we're not, because we've got all sorts of problems and things to sort out. That's my dog's barking in the back. But don't worry about it. They'll keep going.
It's not a problem. Don't worry.
So if you have a worry, have a good old look at it and find out, why is it a worry? What is it in yourself that maybe has attracted something? It's always yourself. You can only do something about yourself. And it's an inward journey as well.
So fix yourself and you fix others.
Absolutely. If you go inward, you will find your true and spiritual self, which will radiate love. And that will then attract love to you and your problems pretty much.
But there's not everything we can fix. I mean, there's family problems some people have. There's all sorts of problems.
Of course you can't fix everything, no. But it's a slow and evolving journey. And it's an eternal journey. We're always on it. None of us are perfect, and we're moving forward. But you will find forgiveness is the big one. If someone's been really, really horrible to you, remember we live under the law of cause and effect, and you have to sort out all your bad side, and you could say pay the price. You have to learn the lesson of all the wrong things that you do. So if someone's done something really horrible to you, they will have to learn that that was not the right thing to do. If you hold bitterness to them, you did that to me, I'm not going to forgive you. All you're doing is making yourself bitter, closing yourself off from your truly loving nature. So by forgiving, you release yourself. You're suddenly totally free. You don't let anybody off. Everybody's going to have to meet their own destiny and sort their things out. But you free yourself by forgiving.
And again, I suppose forgiving and being truthful as well to yourself.
Truth is the whole thing. I am in pursuit of the truth. I only want to know the truth. And the truth can stand up to rigorous investigation and inquiry. So we're all searching for the truth. And the truth is we're spiritual. I know the truth up to a certain point. It isn't my truth. The truth is the truth. There is only one truth. You can have versions of it yourself that aren't very true. But if you are pursuing the actual truth, the first thing you have to do is get rid of yourself and your opinions, because they may be distorting it. And that is part of the journey. It's a process of self-evolvement as well as looking for the truth.
How did you cope with Sarah passing? Was it easier, or was your spiritual views as they progressed over the years, did it make it easy to understand the process?
Oh, absolutely, totally. When Sarah went, it was such a shock. It was so sudden. She wasn't ill. It was absolutely instantaneous. Beautiful way to go. It was just that the electrical impulse to the heart stopped. There was no heart failure as such. There was no pain. There was nothing. She just went. A beautiful way to go, but terrible shock and totally unexpected. And she ran everything. She ran the house. She bought all the clothes for me. She paid the bill. So it was that side of it, as well as missing her, because I loved her and I missed her, was a total shock. But I understood totally that it was her time. She'd gone home. They'd said to her, you can come home too. You've done your bit. You've done well. Come back home. So from her point of view, it's a great and glorious thing. So I can understand, I don't grieve for Sarah. On the contrary, I can be envious of her, although envy is not a good thing to have. But she's gone home and she's very happy, and I know she's very happy, and she's done a bit. It was just really the physical side of getting used to being without her, and you're entitled to grieve a little.
Yeah,
a little.
There must have been a grieving process.
Of course there is. You're entitled, but some people carry on grieving the rest of their lives. You're not supposed to do that, and that is upsetting for the one who's gone on, because they picked that up.
More of a celebration for her.
I can celebrate. I can rejoice for Sarah. Absolutely thrilled to bits for her that she's gone home. I know it's wonderful. And we know we'll all be together. There's no problem there. You grieve your own personal loss. So you should only allow that up to a certain point, because that is an ego, and it's a selfish process, which is very understandable and very allowable, but it shouldn't go on for too long.
I mean, I've met mediums, who have, lost a loved one, and they find it very difficult very difficult for the grieving process. So I don't think it matters what gifts you've got. You're still human.
But it helps to know that, you see, if the grieving process is saying, oh, poor Sarah, why is she gone? You know, you've got her, you're worried about her as well. It removes that totally. You don't worry about Sarah. She's gone home. You will join her eventually. You'll get there eventually. All you grieve about is the missing of her on a daily basis, which you do, and that is understandable. But that, as I say, that shouldn't be too long.
And what's your views on reincarnation? Is it something you believe in? Or?
Of course, reincarnation is the only thing that makes sense. How can you have kids born in poverty in Ethiopia, dying in childbirth, and a guy born to a millionaire in America living a wonderful life? Where's the fairness in that? There has to be reincarnate. You incarnate to go through a set of circumstances, to discharge some negative energy that you've built up, to work out some karma that you've built up, and then you go back and you've grown spiritually. And you keep doing that while this particular this planet particularly helps you. You may reincarnate another planet, and then you reach a point where you don't need to reincarnate, but you continue to grow. The process is infinite and eternal.
And again, it's took you a long time to come up with these views. I mean, these weren't views that you've just, read a book and said, no, that's my truth. These are time served, aren't they?
You know, we all know these views from day one. You're born with this knowledge. So what it is really, it's reminding yourself. And as you read through, most of us, when they hear something, they'll just feel, yeah, I'm sure that's right. You're reminding yourself the whole time. We know, our spiritual side knows all this. It knows it all. And we are just reminding ourselves.
What's your view on God then? Is it, are we gods? Or is God separate? Or
we are all part of God. Part of God is in us. God is all right, it's no good thinking of him as an old man sitting out there. God is the creator of all that is. God is love. Love is the great creation, which is ever expanding, ever growing. So you could say God is always growing and always expanding. We are part of that process. We're part of God. And God is in everything. The life force is God. Love is God. So we're all part of that, yes. And some people have a spiritual awakening and they actually say, well, I'm God. And in a sense they are, as we all are. We're all God. Every molecule is God. Everything, every animal is God as well.
Obviously, there's a great change going on right now. For you to even have this interview now, times are changing. The media's changing. The whole subject on spirituality is becoming a lot more acceptable. What changes have you seen? Is it sudden?
The changes are absolutely extraordinary because the whole process is speeding up. The vibrational level is speeding up. As I asked you feel time is going quickly. Ask anybody, is time going quickly?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, yes. It's going, well, yeah. That's because it is. The vibrational level is actually speeding up. The frequency level and the vibrational level of the Earth is speeding up because the Earth is ascending. And the Earth is a living being with a consciousness. The Earth has an understanding. And just like we can become enlightened and raise our vibrational level into a higher spiritual level, the Earth can do the same. And this is what's happening. This is what all the prophecies about 2012 are. The Earth is ascending. Now, unfortunately for that, like childbirth, there are some cleansings that has to take place. Some negative energy has to be discharged. There will be earthquakes, there'll be hurricanes, there'll be floods, there'll be tsunamis. I'm afraid there'll be more of this as we go through the process. The doom and gloomers are saying that the 21st of December 2012 is the end of the Earth. It isn't, but it is the change. It is the end of a lot of things as we know them. You can see the banks are falling apart. A lot of the major religions are crustifying because they're not teaching the major truths about the spiritual life and the spiritual realms beyond. So there is a process that is going on of the Earth actually ascending, and we are all ascending with it. We're moving into a higher, which is a more loving and more caring vibrational level. So all the bad things are coming to the surface, we'll see them, and they're going to fall away. And we're going to move into the golden age, which will be a wonderful age where there'll be more love. We'll communicate telepathically. We'll all be aware of our spiritual selves, and it'll be a beautiful place to be.
And do you think this change has sort of happened? Well, it has been happening already, hasn't it?
It's been happening really ever since day one, but it's been speeding up recently because it's reaching its point when it's actually going to happen next year. Yeah. The actual ascension of the Earth is a process that will take place next year.
But do you think we'll recognise it, or do you think it'll be a lot more subtle?
Some will recognise it. The Earth isn't going to blow up. The Earth isn't going to end. It's not going to disappear. A lot of people who are sensitive will be aware of it. Some people won't be. They'll just be aware of all the awful things going on. But if you look upon them as a glorious process of birth, which is moving forward quite quickly, it's quite a short process that we're now at. I think it's very 20 years or so. Yeah. We're going to be moving into this wonderful period where people will be more loving, more caring, and the spiritual side will be understood by everybody.
Yeah, so it's more of a maybe as well as a physical shift in planet movement, as well as a sort of conscious shift as well.
It's a conscious awakening, actually. Yeah. It is, you're right. It's an awareness, a raising of the consciousness to know that we are spiritual beings.
Yeah. And I've got to go back to this. Well, you mentioned before about the whole thing with good and evil. And I just want to say that, just ask you your views on, do you not think that we need opposites, basically, to have existence?
Well, that's why we come here. You see, in the spiritual realm, as you go to the level of your worth, and most of us are reasonably people who don't want to harm anybody, and that's the level you'll go to. You'll be surrounded by people like that. So it's only when you incarnate that you meet the really bad people, the evil, as you want to call it, and the angels and the beautiful people. You can learn the contrast, and you learn to discriminate between good and what is evil. That's what incarnating here is. In the spiritual realm, you go to the level of your worth. Now, if you're an angry and violent person, I'm afraid you'll be surrounded by angry and violent people. Now, that is what hell is, but it's not a fixed place, and you're not stuck there. You've only got to say, I want to change, this isn't right, I don't like it, and whoomp, there's help all around. Even in the spiritual realms, you have angels and you have the people ready to help you. Always, if you ask to move on or ask to be helped to understand why you're in the position you're in, that help is given instantly.
So you're not saying hell is an actual physical place. What you're saying there is it's all very much dependent on your train of thought at the time when you passed as well.
It's not your train of thought, it's your state of being.
State of being, right.
So you can be living in a hell now, some people are.
Well, yes.
Yeah. So when you move, when you move out of the physical body and you change over into your spiritual self, you'll be in a similar environment. That's your hell. But it's changing, and it all will be changed. And as an individual, you just literally ask for help, and light beings will come, just like here. You have people who help you, they'll help you there.
And what would be the last sort of word you'd like to give to the audience?
I think if we can accept that we're first and foremost a spiritual being, and we are temporarily incarnated in this physical vehicle to learn. This is a schoolroom. Don't worry about the suffering. Well, of course you worry about suffering, but they're here for a reason. They're here to teach lessons, and you go back to a very beautiful place with the lessons learned, and we're all, whether you know it or not, advancing spiritually. That means we're becoming more loving. That is a process that is happening inevitably. You can either do it consciously or not.
Well, William Roache, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I enjoyed it, Kevin. I enjoyed talking to you.